Greetings. I'm Dr. Leahcim Semaj, and this is the Semaj MindSpa. We're coming to you again, as we always do, to try to raise the consciousness and to expand the reasoning. Another visit to the Semaj MindSpa is always useful. This is where we take some time away from the noise outside so we can listen more carefully to what is happening inside. I recently completed my 75th cycle around the sun, 75 years, 3/4 of a century. And since then, some things interesting have been happening. I've written a number of pieces expanding on this experience. One was called 75 Things Life Has Taught Me at age 75. Another was the 10 Things I No Longer Care About at age 75. Then I did the 10 things that matter more to me at 75 than they did at 50. And the people responded incredibly. Serious response. Apparently, people want to know what somebody else sees and feels and experiences as he gets further enough down the road to look back. So this show, I thought, would do something a little different. I'm not going to give you 75 lessons. You don't have enough radio time, and I don't have enough breath. Instead, I want to talk to you about something much simpler. What do I know at 75 that I wish I had known earlier? Not because I've figured out completely, I haven't. Anybody who tells that they have figured out life completely probably haven't been paying much attention. But 75 years does give you a certain amount of data. You have loved, lost, succeeded, failed, made good decisions, made some spectacular bad ones. You have worried about things that never happened. You have survived things you weren't certain that would actually destroy you. You have met people you thought would remain forever, who have disappeared. And sometimes people you barely notice became important parts of your life. So perhaps age does not automatically make us wise, but it certainly gives us enough evidence from which wisdom might emerge. So that's what this show is about. The view from 75, what I know now that I wish I knew then. They say that it's the fool who learns from his own mistakes. The wise man learns from the mistakes of the fool. All right? So I want to hail up all my listeners and viewers. Fit FM, Trelawney, my Trelawney family, my North Coast family, my Western Jamaica family. But then my extended family on fitfmja.com around the world. The wonderful thing, you can use the technology in a productive manner. As I say, I don't offer no dancing cat, no clickbait, just real stuff. So, whether you're 35, 45, 65, 75, or 85, I want you to keep one question in mind throughout this program. If you knew you had only 10 good years remaining, let's focus on that. What would you stop caring about now? What would you start caring about much more? So hold that question in your mind as you listen to this reasoning. If you knew for sure you had 10 years. You see, the reality is that, we don't know these things. And we take things for granted. We make assumptions about life. Only in retrospect, if you're so fortunate to realize that wasn't the case. All right. So as I say, I'm Dr. Leahcim Semaj, psychologist, social philosopher, observer of the human spirit. What can we do to improve our condition? Now let's start with the things I no longer care about. Oh, by the way, I'm using this program to pull together all that I've been saying about this issue. So we can seal off this. You can always come back to it, but then now we can move on to some other exciting issues that we have planned. Now, at 75, I have discovered something rather liberating. There are quite a few things I simply don't care about anymore. Now, don't misunderstand me. I haven't become indifferent. I haven't become more feisty. I care deeply about many things. But there's a difference between caring deeply and caring indiscriminately. When you're younger, you can waste enormous amount of psychological energy on things that, in retrospect, were never deserving of it. Too much bandwidth. You gave it too much bandwidth. You gave it too much oxygen. What are some of these things? What people think about you. I had a very interesting discussion online recently with a colleague of mine, who said that, oh, no, you can't say that because he cares deeply about what people think about him. If people think he's a thief, if people think he's a bad person and so on. Listen, my position is what people think about me is not my business. I can't impact why and how they come to that. I'm not wasting the time. I know who I am. Now, if they have those opinions of me, what can I do? Sorry. Things like whether everybody likes you. Who cares? Whether you were invited. Oftentimes there's an event and people, get upset because they weren't invited. Whether somebody returned your call. You understand the kind of thing that used to bother people who got the bigger office, who has the more expensive car, who is wearing what, who received the award, who received the award. That one of the things, even for myself, and I spent a significant time in academia, one thing that never really impressed me is academic titles. Because anybody who gives you a title can also take it back from you. You know what I value most? My PhD. I worked for, was tested on, and verified. I earned a PhD. I completed a pre-doctorate fellowship. I completed a postdoctorate fellowship. You can't take that back from me. Now, whether you become associate professor or full professor, those are all things that people have to vote and make a decision to give you. You make some contribution to it, in terms of your work, but they have to decide that. No, never bothered me. It don't matter what you call me. Who got more applause? Who has more followers? Who cares? Who's talking about you? At 75, some of that becomes background noise. I no longer need everybody to like me. That one took a while, because we grew up being rewarded for approval from your parents. Good boy, good girl, good student, good employee, good husband, good wife, good citizen. We learn to perform for acceptance. And there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting people to think well of us. The problem begins when their approval becomes necessary for your emotional survival. That's where the problem comes in. Because then they own you. If you are dependent on them, your emotional well-being, your emotional survival is based on what other people say about you. They own you. If your peace depends on somebody else's opinion of you, you have handed them the remote control to your emotional life. At 75, I want my remote back. I control the remote of my life. I no longer care about winning every argument. And I didn't just wake up at 75 with that opinion. I was gradually getting there and getting there and getting there. But now I've crossed the Rubicon. I no longer care about winning every argument. That's another expensive habit. There was a time when proving that I was right seemed terribly important. Psychologist, academic, consultant. You have evidence. I have evidence. Let's do battle. But there's something I've learned. You can win the argument and lose the relationship. You can prove your point and destroy the evening. You can establish beyond a reasonable doubt that you were right and still go to bed miserably. Sometimes peace is more valuable than victory. Not always. Some hills, however, are worth defending, but not every. Not every disagreement is a hill worth dying on. I care less about impressing people. I care less about their house, car, title, letters behind their name, the invitation, the VIP section. At some point, you begin asking, who exactly am I trying to impress and why? One of the great freedoms of the anchor leg of life where I am now, maybe the realization that the audition is over. You don't have to keep performing. You don't have to convince everybody that your life is successful. You actually have to live it, as I have. There's a difference. I don't care about being everywhere anymore. Every function, every launch, every cocktail reception, every gathering. And as I say, I've been gradually moving in this direction. It's incredible the number of people who I hear saying that you still live in Jamaica, but I don't see you nowhere because the place that I work from home. I work from home. If I absolutely have to go to the office, I do so. If I absolutely must. The wonderful thing coming out of COVID, we have learned how to use virtual means to conduct a lot of our meetings. So, every WhatsApp group, no. Every argument on social media. So, for example, there are a number of hot button items taking place in Jamaica and the world. I have nothing to say publicly about them. A lot of people try to, use a Jamaican word, bait me. So what do you think about what's going on? What do you think about Cooper's pen? What do you think about so on? So yeah, I have views, but I am not wasting any of my mind power to analyze it. What for? If I find a universal angle where I can see something bigger than the immediate, I may. I've gotten calls from radio stations asking me to comment on certain. I am no social commentator. I have the mind spa. I deal with the bigger issues, the deeper issues. No, not me. One of the benefits of maturity is learning the beauty of a very small word. What that word is? No. One day says, no is a complete sentence. No. Will you come to so-and-so? No. Can you give us a comment? And in fact, I've learned so much about media now. each time, many times you're called up by a radio station or a TV station or even a print media. Oftentimes, what they're looking for are sound bites. I was called about a topic some months ago, and what I did, so I sent the person 3 articles I had written on the topic. When they called me, it was clear that they had their mind made up already. They had actually almost written their story already. What they wanted was that sound bite from a known person to close it off. No, sir. We're done. No. No explanation. No dissertation. No elaborate excuse. Sometimes I may even go a little further. No, thank you. No, thank you. I saw a poster and an invitation, this massive activity that this organization had put up, and they were down just right into my office asking me to, they'd like for me to come and speak there, but they have no budget and they have no, oh, so why does it become my concern now? No, I choose my own battles. No, thank you. And then you stay home. Perhaps sit in my garden. Perhaps listen to some music. Perhaps have a conversation with somebody I actually like. And discover that absolutely nothing terribly happened because you weren't there. Now, here's the lesson. Some of the greatest freedoms in life, especially in your latter life, come from what you acquire. Huh? Not necessarily. Some of the greatest freedoms come from what you finally give yourself permission to put down. That's where some of your greatest freedoms come from. Finally giving yourself permission to put down certain things. The burden of approval, the burden of comparison, the burden of appearances, the burden of explaining yourself, the burden of trying to please people who have already decided not to be pleased. Put it down. You may be surprised how much lighter you become. That's the reality. And I find it is so much, if you notice my appearance online, on my videos, on my reels, it's simple. A black t-shirt. Occasionally, I put a jacket over it. Once in a while, if the place is a little cool or there's something calls for a slightly different message. But one way. Okay? So that's where I am now. Now, that's what I've put down. What about now? What matters more to me now? The other side of that coin. Now, here's the interesting part. As some things become less important, other things become more important. At 50, I was still trying to accumulate. At 75, I find myself curating. Not accumulating, curating. Let me say it again. At 50, I was still trying to accumulate. At 75, I am curating. You try to accumulate accomplishments. You accumulate possessions, contacts. You accumulate experiences. You accumulate credentials, opportunities. All right, that was then. Now, I find myself asking a different question. What deserves space in the life that I have left? I see in my mind an hourglass where more of the sand is in the bottom half of the hourglass of life, the top half, by any stretch of the imagination. That changes everything. I find it amazing when I see so many people in their 80s and 90s and still behaving as if they're still 20. They never got the assignment. Time matters. When you're 25, a year feels enormous. At 75, a year has a very different weight. You begin to understand something intellectually obvious but emotionally difficult. Your remaining years are not unlimited. Neither are yours, by the way, all right? All of you listening now or viewing, your time is not unlimited, but guess what? The younger you are is the less aware you are of it. The difference, however, is that at 75, the illusion becomes harder to maintain. So I have become much more protective of time because you realize what it really is. I don't want to spend 3 hours doing something I dislike simply because somebody thinks that I should be there. No, sir. But a long time ago, I've been moving in this direction. From many years ago, I have given up attending stage shows. And the way I say it is, I can't afford it. Come on, Dr. Semaj. Whatever the stage show costs, 5,000, 10,000, you can't afford it? No, I can't. Let me explain why. Most stage shows don't start properly until midnight or thereafter. Many stage shows, the main acts don't come on until 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. So you're guaranteed to lose your night's sleep. Having done so, your next day is totally unproductive, and probably the next 2 days. Now, put together a day of my life or 2 days of my life, all because of some entertainment activity. No, sir. Too expensive. Can't afford it. I don't want relationships that require endless recovery. I don't want unnecessary drama. Time has become too expensive. Health matters more. Way at the top of my list now of the things that are important, health is at the number 1 position. When your body works properly, you hardly notice it. You get out of bed, walk to the bathroom, just stop there. You realize that there are people who have aged and now they can't get out of bed unaided. They have to call somebody to get them out of bed, help them to the bathroom. Get out of bed, walk to the bathroom. You can climb stairs. You still can drive. You can travel. You can bend down. You can stand up. You can sleep comfortably. You can eat. You can make love. You can carry groceries from the supermarket. I have a ritual some days, I walk from my house to the market and I walk back with my backpack with the things I bought. That's a wonderful feeling. Many times I go to the supermarket, somebody offers to push your trolley out. I said, boss, you're trying to deprive me of my exercise. All ordinary things of life, until one day one of these ordinary things become difficult And that happens for many people. Then you discover what mobility is. Mobility is wealth. It's your ultimate wealth. Energy is wealth. Balance is wealth. I recently started a ritual, because one of the most important thing, is what you being able to, your leg muscles. And I give myself some extra plus with that. As I get out the bed, I hold on to rest my hand on the lower bed frame, and I do 10, 15, 20 squats. Just to energize them, those important muscles, because they got to carry me through the day. Just to energize. Of course, eventually now I make it to the gym. That's what coming out of COVID. I built a gym at home, and then I do some full body, lightweight exercise just to warm the entire body. Then I may just top it off with some bench press, because those muscles have to carry you through life. Balance is wealth. A functioning body is wealth. We spend the first half of life sometimes using the body as though replacement parts are freely available. Then later we discover that the invoice has been accumulating. If you're 40 or 50 and listening to me, don't wait until your body starts shouting. Pay attention while it is still whispering. I remember, and I wrote about this, that I've been physically active all my life, Played, by the way, I gave up football, soccer at age 17. Why? Because at 17, I was going to school part-time in the evening and working full-time in the days. So any break between classes, I could play some ball. But then I quickly gave it up, because most of the people playing football, you think they were auditioning for the World Cup, how rough they played. And I told myself I couldn't afford to get hurt, because I got to go to work tomorrow morning. I got to go to school tomorrow night. So I gave it up. Then I moved to tennis. But that became problematic. It out, no, it in, no, it out, no. Oh God, we can't. It's for. Then I tried basketball. Oh, my goodness, you go up for a rebound and somebody kick out your legs, or somebody elbow out your teeth. I ultimately settled on golf, because you can play golf by yourself. You're playing against the course. And by the way, you learn so much things about other people. There's a particular person I played twice with them in one day, meaning that was the first and the last. Because when you play around and go with somebody, you know everything about their personality. The man thief him, thief him, thief him, thief. But walking then became one of my main things. 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons. I used to say that the reggae marathon, which I was in the half, was my end of year exam. And almost every week I did a 5K. Now I do 5Ks 3 times a week. But then I was never ever a gym person until my now wife, some years ago, she tried to introduce him to the gym. I said, no, man, big man, no going for gym, man, fit and strong. I mean, I'm a road scholar, road be do my work. She said, no, you need the muscle building. And guess what? She for a Valentine's Day gift, she gave me the gift of a personal trainer coming to my house with his equipment 2 mornings a week. But you say, but I'm an early riser. No, the man said he must be here at 5 o'clock. So it was going nice, and I was enjoying it, and the results were clear and all of that. So Chris Gilroy Erskine, my brethren, my personal trainer, he said, why don't you come by the gym even just 1 day a week? That was Spartan, huh? 1 day a week. I couldn't find the time. I tried, no, that, but eventually I tried the results. So from 1 became 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, and I became a committed gym person. Because I learned the power and the importance of muscle building. So that's it. Relationship matter more. I'm giving you the things that are important now. Relationship, critical. No, why do I say that? Not the number of people around you, the quality. At 75, I don't need 500 friends. I'm not sure anybody does. I need people with whom silence isn't uncomfortable. People who can laugh, who can listen, who don't require a performance, who can disagree without turning disagreement into war. People who are genuinely pleased when something good happens to you. The last category, maybe the smallest that we imagine. Intimacy matters more now in my life. And intimacy is not just simply sex. Sex can be intimate, but sex and intimacy are not synonymous. Intimacy is being seen, known, touched emotionally. Having someone with whom you can remove not only your clothes, but your armor. I like to use the analogy with, a lot of women, who they go to work with their power briefcase and their power suit and so on. All that's missing is the cape and the mask, but it's probably there. But many of them, when they come home, they don't know. As you put down the briefcase and the computer, you take off the mask and take off the cape. I love that line from Junior Gong. Show light, lock off. And I'm human again. That's what intimacy is about. Some people have sex regularly and remain profoundly lonely. Others have less sex, but enormous tenderness. At the stage of life, connection is what matters. Touch, conversation, companionship, being wanted, being desired, being able to reach across the bed or the table and know that somebody is really there because they want to be there, not because they're obliged to be there. Other thing, peace matters more now. Not the absence of difficulty, that's impossible. I mean internal peace. The ability to sit quietly with yourself without needing constant distraction. At 75, peace is not boring. Peace is luxurious. And increasingly I ask, does this person actively bring value into my life? Or repeatedly disturb my peace? That question becomes a very useful filter. Very useful. Now, what I wish I had understood at 50. Now, if I could sit across the table from my 50-year-old self, what would I tell him? First, I might look at him for a while because he would probably think he knew quite a lot. I don't want to know anything from old people. And perhaps he did. But knowledge and perspective are different things. So I would say, Semaj, stop worrying about so many things that will never happen. Think about how much life we lose rehearsing catastrophes. What if this happened? What if that fails? What will people say? What if I lose the opportunity? What if the business doesn't work? Some concerns are legitimate. Planning matters. Preparation matters, but worry often masquerades as preparation. It isn't. Worry is frequently just paying psychological interest on a debt we may never, ever have. I wish I understood that sooner. Secondly, what I would say, take care of your body before it forces you to. I'm glad I got that hint, and I'm glad I listened. Exercise isn't punishment. Movement isn't vanity. Strength isn't merely about looking good. You are training for your future independence. That's what I would tell. Every time you straighten your legs, improve your balance, walk, stretch, sleep properly, eat sensibly, you may be making a deposit into your 70, 80, and 90-year-old self. The goal isn't simply longevity. I don't merely want to add to my life. I want life in those years. I want to move, to think. Travel has never been something big on my list. Most of my traveling has been work related. But of late, I'm seeing when I read about certain societies who have really got it figured out, I wouldn't mind spending some time in a place like Norway to see how they actually live, how they have achieved so much. Places like that interest me. Important things: love, create, to laugh, to contribute. I don't want to merely be alive. I want to be living. Thirdly, invest in relationships before you need them. Don't reach 75 and suddenly decide you need friends. Friendship has compound interest too. So what I tell myself at 50, you call people, visit people, make time, repair what is repairable, let go of what is not. Tell people you love them while their ears can still hear you. We have a strange habit of waiting until funerals to deliver some of our best speeches. I recently wrote a piece that got a lot of response. Have repassed, replaced reunions? Huh? So many times you see people at funeral, the repass. Boss, years I don't see a man like you. We have to somebody, call you next week, man. Next week don't come. Tell them now. Buy the flowers now. Make the calls now. Take the photograph now. Have that dinner now. I frequently, almost on a weekly basis, arrange a breakfast with a brethren, a luncheon with one of my children. Stop procrastinating. That's what I tell myself back, man. Stop procrastinating. See, when I finish this project, when I make enough money, when the children are grown, when I retire, when things settle down, then I'll travel, then I'll rest, then I'll enjoy myself, then I'll start living. Be careful, folks. Then is one of those most dangerous words, because one day you'll discover there aren't as many thens left. Fifth, money matters, but know what it's for. Money buys options, some amount of security, some comfort, some experiences, healthcare, freedom from certain kinds of dependence. Yes, those things matter enormously, but money is a tool. If accumulating becomes the entire purpose of life, you can become rich in assets, but poor in living. There are quite a few people like that. Eventually, you must ask, how much is enough? I wrote a piece about that recently, and I'm doing another piece to expand on that. This whole constant pursuit of more and more and more. How much is enough? What is this money supposed to make possible? If you never answer those questions, the finish line keeps moving. There's always another house, another car, another investment, another zero to add. More, 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 more. And eventually life says, time's up. That may be the cruelest transition of all, to spend all your time acquiring money and discover too late that money cannot buy back your time. Reality, the best is yet to come. I've been preaching that for years. Really? People who know my work know one of my recurring ideas. Just turn around and draw a book off a shelf here. You see? Title of one of my books, The Best is Yet to Come, A Psychologist's Guide to Thriving in Retirement. Available on Amazon, for those of you who don't have it already. The best is yet to come. But let's challenge that tonight. At 75, is the best really yet to come? Well, it depends on what you mean by best. The best mean fastest sprint? Probably not. If best mean most here? Definitely not. If best mean having the body you had at 25? Definitely not. If best mean having endless years ahead? Clearly not. So perhaps the phrase needs some interpretation and clarification. The best that is yet to come may not be more, but it may be deeper. Deeper relationships, deeper understanding, deeper appreciation, greater freedom, greater selectivity, less pretending, less fear of judgment, less need for applause. Perhaps one of the greatest privilege of age is finally becoming comfortable with the person you have spent your entire life becoming. Carl Jung wrote about a concept called individuation, the process of becoming more fully oneself. Recently, we'll talk about smaddyization, becoming smaddy. And I think there's something important there for the anchor leg. The first part of life often asks, what does the world need me to become? The latter part may ask, who am I when I no longer need to prove anything? That's a very different question. Maybe your 70s don't have to be a faded version of your 40s. Maybe your 80s don't have to be a diminished version of your 60s. Perhaps each stage has its own assignment. The anchor leg isn't about trying desperately to run the first leg again. It's about bringing everything you have learned into the final stretch. Experience, judgment, perspective, humor, scars, mistakes, love, loss, all of it. And then ask, what can I still do with what remains? Because here's the mistake I refuse to make. I will not spend the rest of my life merely remembering the best parts of my life. I still want to create new memories, new ideas, new conversations, new experiences. That's what we do with the Mind Spa. Generate new ideas, new questions, new work, new people, new laughter. Perhaps even some new trouble. Why not? But not too much trouble, but enough to keep things exciting, huh? But enough to know that I am still alive. The goal is not simply to grow old. The goal is to remain alive while aging. My objective is not just to age, but for me, it is to sage, to get wiser, curious, engaged, useful, open, loving, learning. That is what I mean when I say the best is yet to come. Not because tomorrow is guaranteed to be better. It isn't. But because as long as tomorrow arrives, I intend to meet it. Now, I want to bring this home. I asked you earlier a question at the beginning of this program, and here's it again. If you knew you had only 10 good years remaining, what would you stop caring about? And what would you start caring much more about? Now, don't answer too quickly. 10 good years, not bedridden years, not merely breathing. 10 years in which you can still move around, think clearly, love, travel, work, laugh, contribute. What would change Monday morning? Would you stay in that relationship? Would you leave it? Would you make the call? Would you forgive somebody? Would you ask for forgiveness? Would you finally write that book you've been talking about? Would you start the business you have been fantasizing about? Would you start planting that garden you've been talking about? Would you take that trip that you have been fantasizing about? Would you learn to swim? Would you go back to school? Would you tell somebody you love them? Would you still spend hours arguing with strangers online? Huh? Would you still allow people you don't even respect to determine how you feel about yourself? Would you continue postponing happiness? Here's the uncomfortable part. You don't know whether you have 10 good years. Neither do I. At 35, you don't know. At 50, you don't know. At 75, I certainly don't know. So the question isn't about death. The question is about urgency. Not panic. Urgency. There's a difference. Panic says, I'm running out of time. Wisdom says, because time is limited, I must become more intentional about how I use time. That's where I am at 75. I want maximum value from my remaining years. Not maximum activity, not maximum possession. In fact, I want less possessions. Not maximum attention. No. Less. I want maximum life. And those are very different things. The view from 75. So, what do I know now that I wish I knew then? I know that some things I worried about didn't deserve the energy I gave them. So I know that. I know that health is wealth long before illness arrives. I feel it's an interesting feeling, for years. I've been trying to convince my friends and associates about fitness, about weight training, about building muscle, because muscles are the largest, technically the largest organ in your body. And we underestimate what muscles do. There's something called sarcopenia, where you lose muscle mass from about age 30, but definitely by the time you reach 50 or 60, it accelerates, losing muscle mass and also losing bone density. I realize now, when I see many of my compatriots, my associates, who was never interested in fitness, definitely not weight training, the foundation that I was able to put in those days at Spartan Gym, and then in my gym at home, once fitness and health becomes a critical part of your life, this mantra, my mantra is that if you don't take care of your body, where are you going to live? You gotta live inside a body. So, right? And then the one that developed over time, that if you don't be careful, the default clause is to become old and fragile as opposed to old and agile. For the last at least 10 years, every time I travel, when I check on the hotel I'm going to be staying at, the first thing I look at, does it have a gym? Does it have a gym? And if there are options, I mean, this one doesn't, but many hotel gyms are waste of time. Huh? They have a few cardio machines, a few maybe maybe a stair climber and some, but in terms of actually resistance training, that's my first thing. Is because it's a part of my daily routine. You eat, you breathe every day, you work out. When I'm traveling, the first thing that goes in my suitcase is my sneakers. Because once you have a pair of comfortable shoes, you can walk. You can maintain your fitness. So when I see now at 75, some of the benefits that I am accruing based on the investment that was put in. I remember when I started first doing bench press, it was one of my hardest activities because my shoulders, but Chris started off like, 210 pounds. And then we gradually, and he had a nice warm-up activity to warm up all the muscles before we start. Now, it's one of my favorite go-to. One of my favorite go-to. The importance of bench press. Deadlift. Push-ups. Planks. So the view from 75, I give thanks for the investment made back then. So the baseline that the body has built in. I know that health is wealth long before illness arrives. I know that relationships require investment. It's important that you put in the time. I know that peace is precious. And it's my number one thing, peace. Peace. If you notice how powerful the concept of peace is. I wrote about that recently. So many traditions have peace as part of it. Peace. The iconic Rastafari greeting, peace and love. Peace and love. Peace. And we take it for granted. But to have peace within you and peace between your fellow men and women. So many people now have no concern about peace. I know that peace is precious. I now know that intimacy matters. It is so critical. I know that time becomes increasingly expensive. I know that you don't need everybody to understand you. I know that enough may be one of the most important words in the English language. And I know that life cannot be stored for later. You have to spend it. And perhaps the most important thing I've learned at 75 is this. Growing older should not simply mean having fewer years ahead. It should mean having a clearer idea of what those years are for. Having a clearer picture For me, it's almost on a daily basis. Almost every night before I go to bed, I start to do a little map out. Okay, yeah, tomorrow I want to start with this. And it is such a wonderful feeling to have something to plan for. When you get in the morning now, what do you start with and so on. So whether you are 35, 45, 55, 65, 75, or beyond, I leave you with 3 questions. What do you need to stop caring about? Just think about all the things that bother you and you're concerned and you spend your time with and so on. What are the things that you need to stop caring about? Give it some time. Give it some concern. Because, with time you'll figure it out. But start from now. Identify the things you need to stop caring about. And the more you put some time into it, it will become clearer to you what are these things you need to stop caring about. That's question 1. Question 2, what deserves more of your remaining time? Again, whether you're 35, 45, 55, it doesn't matter. What deserves more of your remaining time? Because time is all you have. And you don't know how much it is. All you know that it's a one way, it moves in one way. Question 3. What are you postponing that you should begin while you still can? What are you postponing? It's incredible, how some people just keep putting off. Say, I don't have enough money. No. You'll never have enough. Once money is your concern, you'll never have enough. I remember having a conversation, I won't call the name, a major hotelier who owned a number of the most wonderful hotel properties. And I said to him, he has transitioned now. I remember asking him one day, we were traveling together. I said, when was the last time you spent a relaxing weekend at one of your resorts? And he looked at me blank at the question. He looked at me blank. And you can see it's because whenever he's at one of his resorts, his work, he's planning for the next expansion and the next problem to solve and so on. So what I'm saying, folks, don't wait until 75 to answer these questions. Although, if you do reach, I hope you arrive curious. I hope you arrive loved. I hope you arrive still caring and capable of loving. I hope you arrive with stories. I hope you arrive with scars. I hope you arrive having made mistakes. That means you have participated. I hope you arrive looking forward rather than only looking back. Because until you cross the finish line, you're still running. I'm Dr. Leahcim Semaj. Thank you for spending this hour with me at the Semaj MindSpa. Take care of your mind. Take care of your body. Take care of the people who matter in your life. Absolutely important. Take care of your time. You don't know how much of it you have left. And remember, the best is yet to come. The best is indeed yet to come.